I know Kung Fu.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get DMCA strike. Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. And my name's Dustin.
And my name is Kenny.
Sharpshooter Nolan.
And this is episode 462. And the question of the week is, what is the best superhero video game of all time?
When you gave us this question to prepare our thoughts beforehand, you were like, oh, there's an obvious answer, but don't say that. I don't feel like I know what that is. Maybe it's because I don't play this genre a lot. But there's a few really popular ones. Some of the recent Spider-Man games have been really popular.
There's not tons of options, so I wouldn't go through a list of naming.
No, I'm just naming like two things that
There's
I'm
a
like,
ton of
I
bad
don't
ones.
know if they're great.
Is
Some
more
of the
accurate.
Batman Arkham games are really popular. Regardless, my answers are based on things I've played and loved, and you guys might scoff, but two really good superhero games. Marvel Ultimate Alliance. That was a super fun series.
Yeah.
You played that? Y'all
did.
played that?
Yeah.
Do you know
And-
what Ultimate Alliance is?
No.
It's not
You actually
Rivals.
No, you'd
No,
enjoy it.
Yeah, I just don't understand why I wouldn't have known that you've played that.
Arcade, right, Kenny?
No.
No.
Is it? No.
Oh, I'm
I
thinking
played
of
it
something
on
else.
360, I think.
Okay, so then never mind.
And this one I think is more divisive, but Marvel Marvel superheroes, whatever
I
it's called.
don't think that's divisive, actually.
Yeah, no, I've heard good
I've
things.
heard good things about all Lego games and the Batman
The whole
one
the
and
whole
that
Lego series is great.
Yeah.
They
Kenny,
really are.
I'm going to scoff just out of principle, but I think those are good and unique and creative answers.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
one. Default scoff. I think I know the actual answer you're referring to, Dustin. And I think Kenny even said it indirectly.
I think there are two that are
Yes.
kind of non-negotiable. They have to be in the top 5 of actual lists.
It's Arkham City. You would
Yes.
maybe say Night, but I think City.
No. I think City is probably the more.
I think it's perfect game. It's a perfect Batman game, perfect superhero game. The other one is probably Spider-Man 2018 or Spider-Man 2 for PS5, the like newer ones.
I think people it would be different on different people's lists. I think the 2018 Spider-Man is probably like so good.
But my sleeper answer that neither one of you will expect, but I totally believe this, is a game called X-Men Legends. It was for the PS2 and GameCube. I had it for GameCube.
Love this.
And it's fantastic. You can play as a lot of the different mutants, and it's kind of a co-op game, but I always played it single player, so you have like a team of X-Men with you, and the combat was really good. Like everybody had their powers, and they translated to the game really well. X-Men Legends, really good superhero game.
Can we also give a shout out to the old school arcade X-Men game?
Yes, we can.
Is that
That
Dustin's
one's
answer?
great.
No. I mean, I had thought about it. I went back and actually watched some gameplay in preparation for this because I was like,
It's
I have fond
so
memories.
good.
Yes, leave it in your memories though, because I don't know if it.
Yeah.
I
hate it when that happens.
Sure. Like it's still real. I mean, those sprites are chonky, and you've got Colossus and Storm, and you've got some really cool characters. So there's a lot of good stuff, but it's kind of like the arcade Ninja Turtle one,
Yeah,
which is good, but it's also aged. It's very difficult, and some different things like
There's
that.
a new X-Men movie coming out, by the way, too. Something to get hyped for. I will be. That's like the only superhero movies I get hyped for.
Logan 2.
No, it's like a full cast. They haven't announced the cast yet, but
So how do you know it's a full cast? I picked a game that it was not going to be a surprise to y'all, although you might not have thought of it. I think Kenny prefers its brother or sister, its sibling, but I think Turtles in Time, TMNT 4, is one of the best.
It's great. Yeah.
Arcade-like experiences. It's so much fun playing that by yourself or with friends, and just the multiple turtles and being able. It's just that
was in that new release package. It's like remakes of them or something.
I think
or
it might have been.
remasters.
By the way, I know I told Nolan, I don't know if you remember, or Kenny, but I played that new Shredder's Revenge, which is really
Yeah,
good.
you talked about it.
Okay, at honoring the old Ninja Turtle games while having a refresh.
It's
perspective.
co-op, right?
Yeah, it's,
Yes,
But you chose not to invite either of us to play with you.
he
Y'all can
probably
come play
did.
with me?
He probably did invite us.
So what? So that's Marvel Ultimate Alliance, or the Lego one. That's X-Men Legends, and that's Turtles in Time. Man, those three, that would be the holy trinity of superhero games.
Wow, good one. You rearranged that. It spells Neo.
What? Rearrange what?
The
Good
word
one?
Also, I
Yeah,
thought you were just
that's-
leaving it at that because he is the one.
Well, sure. It's a double entendre.
Gotcha.
It's time to jack into our retro game of the week. Enter the Matrix.
Overview.
The year is 2003, and Matrix Mania has swept the nation.
Hackers.
I think specifically Nolan. Nolan loves all things Keanu. Is that true?
That is true, yeah.
Can
Pretty much
Keanu
everything.
do anything wrong?
Yeah, actually, I have a really good example. I'm glad you asked. We recently, so Nosferatu just came out, and we were like,
you
oh,
saw
let's,
his Dracula?
let's go watch the other Dracula
Yeah,
movies.
bad.
And the Coppola one has him in it as the main dude, and his British accent is trash.
He's
And his
also
acting's kinda
super
bad.
young.
He was
Super
very young, but that movie's sick. That's an aside.
The first movie had come out, which we don't have to go all into this. I had heard this week, I don't know if it's true or not, that it took a little bit of time for the Matrix to actually become huge. Like,
I think because everybody just word of mouthed it.
I remember being slammed with ads for it as a kid. I think
Yeah.
it reached younger audiences first, and then I think to build to complete mainstream exposure, it did take a little bit of time.
well, so because part of the reason The Matrix, the first one, came out in 1999, it was 4 years later, in 2003, when The Matrix Reloaded came out. That's a pretty large window. It's not unheard of, but it's a pretty large window because then after there, it was 2003 Reloaded, 2003 Revolutions, and then
Yeah.
obviously 2021 Resurrections, which you're the only one that liked?
I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know what people's complaint is. I would love to hear it. I thought the movie was completely sick.
I don't think they knew the first one was going to be as popular as
Yeah.
it was. And then when it was like a huge cultural phenomenon, they were like, oh man, now we got to like run on it. And running takes ramp up time. And so it just took them a little while.
It was huge,
and they
though,
just,
dude. Matrix was
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, but they
And the release of it is so important. 99 Y2K, are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
That's the
Perfect
perfect
timing.
story for that.
Iconic movie, but they should have stopped after the first one.
You are tripping on acid. Why do you think that?
False. It was the only good
God.
one.
Wow. Well, the movies were not the only media that the Wachowskis were helping to put out around the time of its release, which is great for the content and concept of the movie and the world that was being created. To have other multimedia experiences is a great idea and fits into all that the Matrix
does.
is
Yeah.
all about. And a part of that was this first game that was based on the film series, which again is shocking that it took that many years for a video game to come out. Today it would be like, we're releasing the game before the movie and it's gonna be bad. But
They did that back then, too.
yeah,
My theory on that is the Wachowskis were protective of this media. I
IP,
mean,
yeah.
they were involved in the game, which does not happen. A
very
movie director
involved.
does not care about the games that come out. So I think that may have played a little bit in that this was their baby, you know?
Yeah. So, Enter the Matrix is a new story that is concurrent with Matrix Reloaded. It comes with original
confused.
footage, features some of the original cast of the films, and as Nolan just mentioned, it was written and directed by the Wachowskis. It was developed by Shiny Entertainment, published by Infogrames, which published Earthworm Jim.
Is that where I've heard that
experience.
freaking name?
Okay.
That's our experience.
I've never heard of either of these the publisher or
Yeah.
the developer, but I guess I have. Is it Infro?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's
No,
both.
come
No,
on.
you might be right. I know there's a random R in there. I thought there were two random R's. It's just one, so it is Infogrames. Yeah.
Grames. Okay. Okay.
And it's a subsidiary of Atari. It's connected to Atari.
Interesting.
In some way.
Okay.
So
All right.
the game did come out in 2003 for the GameCube, for the PlayStation 2, for the Xbox, and for the PC. Which one did I play it on? Yes.
Tried a little bit of all of them. I did too. That always scares me when I go look at the release and it's not an exclusive. Strike number one. Number two, it got ported. Okay, but it got ported to everything. That's when you're in like EA territory where they just spit it out on everything. They were like, what do you want this to come out on? And they also said yes. And they just did it because I don't know why that's a bad sign, but it always is.
Well,
I
I'll
can't
tell you,
explain why.
Because I don't hate the idea. I like it being out on multiple consoles and a lot of people being able to play it. But what I don't like is how often it is shoddy work that is translating it from one system to another. And
Or like
you
two
usually
different teams that did a different console than the
Oh
other.
yeah, that happened too.
That can be
back in this time, and so you get completely varying results,
Yeah.
graphically, or like some even have. We played games where some on different consoles have different soundtracks or like different stages.
Yeah.
I don't love that when it's to varying qualities and varying degrees, which you often get, and you get that here. I mean, like the Xbox
sure.
does not perform like the GameCube, and the GameCube doesn't perform like the PC. It's all got its intricacies.
And the PC doesn't perform.
Yeah, I mean, all of these don't necessarily perform. They all have their issues, which we'll get into. It's an action and adventure game. It's a third person shooter. It's like a lot of not Mad Max. What am I doing? A lot of what is one of my favorite
Max
games
Payne.
with Max
Max
Payne.
Payne
Thank
is
you.
what you're thinking of.
It's got a lot of
borrowing
Max Payne
from it.
vibes.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but Max Payne was borrowing from The Matrix,
No,
even
it
though The
wasn't.
Matrix games didn't exist.
When did Max
Wait,
Payne
no.
come out?
When did Max Payne come out, brother?
After the Matrix.
Oh, is it
After
2001?
The Matrix.
Yeah. But
The original
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
they didn't. Max Payne didn't come up with bullet time
Hold
on
on.
their own.
Matrix didn't come up with bullet time. You think Matrix?
yeah,
Sure,
they got
bullet
that
but
time?
from Walt Disney.
They popularized it. They mainstreamified it.
And Max Payne solidified it. They did it best. But
They really are cited for being the Max Payne games are being cited for the ones that like did bullet time first and did it right. I always hear that.
they did do it so well.
Yeah.
I will give you a little bit of the story, but The Matrix has a story that is a lot, and I feel like it.
The word you're looking for is incomprehensible.
That's so. Well, how many movies have you seen, Kenny? Because that's so not true.
I've
It's
seen
very
all
easy.
of them.
You've
Shit.
seen Resurrection?
Uh huh.
It's
That's
very
the
easy
fourth
to
one that
recent
came
one?
out a couple years ago.
Yeah, where he decided
Oh!
to hit everybody with his shoulder instead of with his
Nolan.
guns or feet or hands.
What is he talking about? What are you
I don't know. I
talking
haven't seen that one. I've seen the original trilogy, but it's been many years.
about? Yeah, it is a lot. I will give you that. But Kenny's saying it's incomprehensible. That's not true.
So I'm not going to build out all of what The Matrix is all
Sure.
about. You need to go and watch the first, second, and third movie to figure those things out.
First one. And then stop.
At least the first one, yes.
But basically, the world is a simulation, and humans are the batteries. And in this game, you are playing as Niobe and Ghost, who are the captain and first mate of the Logos, a ship in the real world. And they are working in events that parallel to the events of the second movie. So it begins with them having to retrieve a package left in the Matrix by some fellow rebels. The package is a message, and the message is not good. There is an army of 250,000 machines that are on its way to the human city of Zion, and Niobe and Ghost must get that information to the people that need it most.
It's a great concept. NGP is basically a book club, but instead of boring old books, we play retro video games. And it would be impossible without you, our community. Every week, we hang out in Discord with you, and we talk about new and old video games. Discord is the hub for all things NGP. In Discord, you can talk about the game of the week that we're playing for the podcast. You can talk about retro finds that you find at the gaming store, or you can talk about hobbies, if anyone even has those anymore. All you have to do to get involved in the community is go to discord.gg/newgameplus and get plugged in with our ever-growing community of retro gamers. We'll see you there.
Gameplay.
If you asked me to imagine what a Matrix game would look like, this is exactly what I would picture.
Yeah.
It is an action-y game that gives you both the ability to do lots of fighting in the Matrix style, as well as lots of gunplay, with the primary mechanic being do cool bullet time stuff and dodge bullets and run up walls and do Trinity backflips and fight a bunch of guys. And that's what this game is.
You're missing like the main thing that needs to be in a Matrix video game.
Sunglasses.
Neo.
No.
Neo.
No.
No.
He doesn't have to be in it. He doesn't. No, he doesn't have
It's
to be in
the
it.
first Matrix game, and there's no Neo. I think for not only me, because I don't necessarily care, but for the fans of the time, that was extremely problematic.
He was working on another movie, I'm sure, because
no, they're not going to pay him to record extra stuff here. Like,
That
that's
feels
crazy.
like
no, he would
feels
do
like
it for
such
free.
a-
I think it's just he was
What are
probably
you
busy.
talking about?
What?
It's
Keanu
business.
Reeves. Come on.
No, you've got this. You see him as a halo around his head, can do no wrong.
I really don't.
He's-
Some people do. I think it's weird. I think he seems like a great person, but like I think he loves this and would do it for free.
Nolan, I'm pretty sure he does. He's not the main character in this game, but I'm pretty sure later in the game he has some like voice lines or something. 10% of the game's entire development budget, over 10%, went to paying.
Oh, is that
him
real?
those
That's
voice
real?
lines. Real.
My goodness.
So
My
there
my-
might have been reasons that they didn't have him do even more.
See, I
My
think it's
point-
fine. He's not the main character.
Whoa, and that's coming from
So-
you. That is so shocking.
too.
No one wanted a game where they could play as Jada Pinkett Smith.
Heck
one
no, that's
was
why I pick
wanting
Ghost
that.
every time. Are you crazy? Jada
Oh,
Pinkett
no,
L.
I picked
no.
Niobe.
Niobe's lame, dog. Ghost every single playthrough. I'm never
Ghost
gonna
is
play
the
Niobe.
way
Wow,
here,
y'all
too.
are sexist.
Nolan and I are we are in lockstep
Jada
today.
Pinkett-ist.
I was doing the first place, so I had to pick a girl, or people would be mad at me. But I
not
stuck
true.
with it for the rest of the week. So you just heard, but you get to pick either Niobe
Yeah.
or Ghost to do the things that Kenny was saying, to do the bullet time, to do the running up walls. Anyone can do that. Splits, you kick people across the floor. Like it's got. I mean, I do agree with that side of what you're saying, Kenny, that you're getting to do a lot of the Matrixy things.
Absolutely.
I just think you were leaving out what most people wanted during the time. Again, this is the very first Matrix video game. You would think that they would be like, let's give them the opportunity to play the coolest guy that they could. Instead, it's these side characters that most people don't really care much about.
Yeah, I can't see that being a letdown for some, but the fact that everything else Matrixy is what your character is given the option to do is right. That's correct. That's what they should have done. Like it really felt like in this game the objective was be cool, and you
Which is
kind
what you
of
wanna
could.
do.
Like it's almost it's old, and we'll get into some of the restrictions and the handling and some of those things. But once you kind of get the hang of it, it's kind of sandboxy. Like just in the sense that like, hey, do a mid-air bullet time barrel roll while shooting. Yeah, I'm gonna do that 90% of the time. I think that's the best thing. It looks really stupid and awesome, and I like stuff like that. And they let you do that. Like, I would have worried about this game that they didn't go there, and you kind of were more on rails, and it was just strictly like a shooter or something, or strictly hand-to-hand. But the fact that they put all the things there is the right formula. It really is.
It is.
It was giving The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age this week. Are y'all following with me?
I'm following you. Keep cooking, because I was trying to figure out how to make a comparison here, not with that, but just a comparison to tell people, but continue.
So Lord of the Rings: The Third Age is more of an RPG, and that's not this. But the whole setup is you are kind of following in the wake of, I don't remember if it was the Fellowship or the Two Towers or maybe the whole thing. And you are a different crew, less important crew that's following in the wake of and seeing some of the events of the movies. It's kind of the same thing here. Like
I could see it.
You're not really involved with the main movie things, but all of the in-betweens. And by the way, if we haven't clarified, like I'll just make it clear right now. Not only was this written and directed by the Wachowskis, this is canon. This is a part of the. This is a part of the story. Just as much, that might sound blasphemous, as the movies.
No, you're right, and you're reminding me of something really funny.
There are parts of the movie where like things just sort of happen that they let you just sort of imagine it, that the game then shows you what actually happened there. So like direct actual tie-ins. And again, you already talked about it in the intro, but like literally took the time to go and shoot film, cinematography style shots of these actors
35
like doing this story. Yeah, and then what's interesting is them then having to like convert that and figure out the right ways to like digitize it in a way that didn't look too bad. When there were limitations, like I think the GameCube version of this came out on like multiple discs, which is unheard of for GameCube, but like they really wanted all those cinematics to be involved. Anyhow, they went really hard into still making it feel like that universe.
When I went to see Resurrections in theater a couple years ago, my friend Mo, who used to work at this company that was affiliated with Alamo Drafthouse, before the movie, Alamo always plays like things related to the movie you're about to watch. He had a bit on there where he talked about this game being canon and how odd it is that a video game would be considered canon in a movie series. And they had clips from the game and stuff. And I was like, we're going to play that one day. And here we are.
Look, I don't hate the idea of this crossover media universe, but I do think it's very difficult to do.
It's dangerous.
It is. I think of Final Fantasy 15 as an example, where parts of the story were told through an anime series, a feature film.
I didn't know that.
A number of video games. You probably would have heard it back at the time.
The Noctis game.
Yeah, it's the Noctis game, and people didn't like that because in the game itself you're missing so much of the story. Like it doesn't really make sense as a standalone. And I completely understand that, but I'm always open for more story. And so I watched all of those things and thought they were done exceptionally well and really enjoyed it, but it is problematic. And I think that's a problem here too. If you haven't seen the movie, you're going to, it's kind of trying to tell you, but you're going to be lost.
When it's required, it's a problem. When it's supplementary, it can be amazing.
If each thing still stands on their own, independent of the others, and you can pull that off, and they add value and don't distract or take away value, it works fine. That's a very hard thing to do with storytelling. And I don't think they got it completely right here, but I don't think they were as egregious as like your Final Fantasy example.
I didn't know they did that.
I think if you hadn't watched the movie, the game feels a little bit confusing. But I don't think that's as bad in reverse, which is the way you want to do it. It was, movie first in this case, world they were building. So I didn't hate it here. I get that that's difficult.
One thing that they do in this game that surprised me quite a bit, woven into the gameplay, is storytelling and a lot more dialogue than I would have expected. There's still story part of this game. So the way that they set it up is, I again try to bring a comparison, but I'm falling short of drawing a comparison. But you have objectives in these stages, And so it's not just an all-out sandbox kill, the projections and stuff. It is, you have a mission and you must complete it. And so you have someone on comms talking to you, and there's there's hang-ups along the way. And so it actually does feel like a story game in a lot of ways that I didn't expect it to. I thought it was just going to be kind of like Matrix in title, and then like just some game they spat out, but the canon aspect is actually really intriguing because they don't slack off on the story side of it.
Kenny, are you just fast forwarding through the story? What are you?
Well, you kind of
No,
can't
I
in a level.
Yeah,
And that's story.
It
It's not story.
It was
It's-
integrated here, but the cutscenes weren't too long. They were well done. They looked good. A few moments in there, some of the acting, I was like, this wouldn't have made it to the actual big screen. But like overall, it had the look and the feel of a bonus experience of the stuff that you get from the movie, and that's hard to do if you're not involving all the same people and you don't have that sort of like buy-in beyond just like we're making a game and we're making a movie. And I think it's worth the effort when people are willing to do it because it gives you something unique. So yeah, I'm there. I liked this. Well, I liked the way they went about telling the story here. Again, I don't like care for this story or these movies overall, really.
We get
but, like,
it. You're a
they were
hater,
fine.
bro.
I am a little bit.
As Kenny had previously mentioned, the thing that's most important with the Matrix game is that you feel like you're being able to do the Matrix related things. And you do feel that here. The combat is kind of split in two. You've got gunplay and you've got hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand, first, we can talk about handling just in general is the weirdest choice, or the weirdest choices here. I've never had triangle for punch and circle for kick. That has thrown me off all
That's
week.
more of a fighting game thing.
I played primarily on PlayStation 2 this week,
same.
although I got experience from all of it. And then the gunplay is fun and good. You're not picking up ammo, you're just picking up guns all over the time, or taking guns from the enemies that you're facing, and you're very limited on bullets. So it really, like, for me, I know y'all were saying you can do I think Nolan, you said the barrel roll while you're shooting. Yes, that is cool. Dual wield, I mean that's great. But the hand to hand is what was most fun to me and what I opted to do most of the time. And you've got a few different options, like, I mean, you've got kick combos and punch combos, but you can hit both of the buttons at the same time and do this toss throw thing that instantly puts them down. Like, you are, like in the Matrix, for most of the enemies you're fighting, you are much more powerful, and so you're able to kick them across the floor, or you're able to disarm them and then use their weapon immediately on them. Like, you are being able to feel these things, and you're being able to do it with the help of your focus meter.
I know Kung Fu.
Oh yeah. We're gonna get DMCA strike.
Such a good moment.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think the hand-to-hand combat is preferable in this game. Which it would have been easier to, I think, lean on the shooter side of it, but I'm glad they didn't like make that the main focus, because one of my favorite things about the hand-to-hand combat is, so the camera angle kind of shifts when you go into like a combo on an enemy, like a disarm, or if you like get a throw on them or something. And so that added like a little something extra every time I engaged with an enemy.
Cinematic.
Yeah, it made it more cinematic, which fits with what we're doing here. We're translating it from the screen. And yeah, the fact that I thought it was going to be button mash and they would just have default combos, but the fact that there's two, one for kick, one for punch, did add a little bit more than they could have. Like, they just went a touch further every time I was like looking for something, and they gave it to me.
I'm with you. I kept discovering new things, like, oh, I can jump different ways than I expected. Oh, I'm also going to be able to climb on environment things, and I'm also going to be able to hide behind walls and peek around them, and like stuff that at first I didn't even think was really an option. There was a lot there, and I don't know, it kind of taught it to you as it went and felt very, very Matrix. I think I ended up I started also liking hand-to-hand combat more, but ended up leaning more on gunplay the longer we went. I think just more enemies, harder, they gave you more weapons, but it's so good. There's
Well,
literally scenes where you're having to do like sideways cartwheels and shooting like 8 people, and it felt like being in the Matrix a little bit. It's strange.
Dustin did mention the focus meter, which is your bullet time. It's draining if you go in bullet time, which is what I'm doing the whole time, guys. Let's be honest. I'm jumping in midair, and just if there's 2 guys in front of me, I'm jumping in midair and just shooting like this, and it looks so stupid.
Oh, I'm
Like,
doing it
I love
when
that.
there's even no enemies around, a cartwheel across the
Yes.
ground. Like, why
Yes.
walk when you can cartwheel?
Why? Why? Yeah, why would you do that? That's insane.
Every set of enemies, I fought them next to a wall, so I could like run along the wall and then jump off and kick them.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's your VATS system in this game. Like that's what you constantly are engaging with, and kind of what combat's built around. And I think that works so well. Like the meter builds passively, but you can expedite it in combat. And I think that's just great. 1 meter, 4 bullet time. You're going to use it often, and you should. It's canon, like it lines up with the movie, but it's just straight up fun gameplay. That's why Fallout's good, is because of VATS, which is their system of bullet time, right? And I got the same kind of like feedback from the game that I do from Fallout when I use VATS.
It's a good idea, and I feel like the meter is large enough and it doesn't deplete too fast. Like I think it's a good balance. I even used it a lot, but didn't often feel myself in lack of it. Like I could use it as long as I was doing it, in moderation. I had it to use when I needed to. Mainly for me though, I was using it to dodge bullets, because bullets hurt, and when someone's shooting at you, as long as you've got your focus pressed, then you're not going to get hit because you're in the Matrix. You're amazing like that. But we've been kind of too positive. Can we please talk about a few things that are negative here? I want to talk about the clunky handling. First of all, you can't control the camera at all, but you've got the left stick and the right stick, but they decided your right stick is just going to be able to move you from third person mode into first person mode, which is much more important, I guess, than complete control of the camera. So you are controlling both your character and the camera, quote unquote, with the left stick. It's the same thing.
It's tied to your character. Yeah, it's one of those games.
I mean, Kenny, you're about to like make an excuse for this nonsense.
I'm not. I'm saying that sounds terrible.
Yes.
They shouldn't have done it that way.
Yes.
I'm glad I only played it on PC, which is not better about giving you control of the camera. It's still just a default camera that follows you, but it's at least not something I had to worry about. I just was moving. And because you're moving free on where you're looking with the mouse, I guess to some degree you are kind of controlling the camera.
Way
It's
better
not
that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you were whining about the UI, and one of the things I was going to talk about was how smooth I thought the UI was, not the UI, but like your key mappings and the way you interact with the game, because they were really smart about intelligent keys where you've got your WASD placement, but then you're hitting tab and shift and 1 or 2
He's
numbers
getting
and
mad.
letters that are really close, and it felt so cozy playing on PC. It sounds like it's a worse experience on console.
It is. The
these
controller is
controls bad. And like it's forward and backwards are your character, and left and right are basically just the swivel of your so like it's not
That's
great.
rough.
Yeah,
that's rough.
It should have been true dual stick, and at the time that this came out, that's totally a thing.
Yes.
It kind of makes you dizzy playing this way, because like you're just so used to like the camera not being locked on your character like that, so you're just so limited. I guess I did boot it up, Kenny, on PC, and I guess I made that connection, but I didn't explore it long enough. I played mainly on PS2, and I think that's where most people probably would have played this game, is on a console. And you know why they might have done that, Dustin, now that I'm talking out loud? Because the GameCube controller right stick is the C stick, and that's not it's not a good camera controller usually.
Yeah.
And so they might have just been lazy and been like, let's just make it one. So it's
which is part of the problem we talked about
Part of the
earlier.
problem,
Porting, you other systems suffer because of decisions they had to make. Another thing that I thought was unfortunate. So we've kind of highlighted the combat, which I think we're all in agreement is fun and feels matrixy. I felt like the environments themselves, where you are, the post office, the city rooftops, even the airport, the sewers. There are these big open, Nolan, you've used the word sandbox a few times, sandboxy environments that are empty and boring and bland. Like I'm fine with large if there's stuff to see and do, but there are multiple rooms that are massive that have one pillar in them or something, and I just felt like the environments were largely uninspired.
I thought the sewers did a better job on this, just because I guess you're a little more confined.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, especially in the first area. This was a problem at the time, I think. That happened in a lot of games, and I'm thinking of superhero games, actually. There's like these Spider-Man games that came out at the time on the N64 that also had big-ish environments, but were completely barren of any character or like even anything to interact with. So it was the early stages of like open world, but this game shouldn't have been trying to do that.
This is a few years later than even what you're describing.
It felt like they were trying to make these places feel realistic in like size and like
relative
scope
to your
of
character.
the environment.
Yes.
Exactly. But they don't feel fully baked in terms of like the visuals, which again we'll talk more about later. I guess that really does become a gameplay element here as well as you're navigating this world. But big, but then just kind of empty or filled, but with like the same thing a bunch of times just as filler. And I agree. There's areas where it felt almost more like a tech demo than like a finished game. I feel like it needed to bake for like another 6 to 12 months on a lot of these levels. Not all of them, but some of them are like, this is just bland.
Yeah. And I would add to that, like the objectives. Nolan, you did mention, and I like when it's baked in the story, and something's evolving. But the objectives weren't very inspiring. It was basically just on most stages get from point A to point B, and point B gets messed up, so go to point C, and point C got messed up, so go to point D. And this is a bad comparison, but it's the one that came to mind. GoldenEye.
Same. I didn't want to say it earlier, but yes.
Really, GoldenEye has on each stage, and depending on the difficulty, has multiple objectives that you're doing that are creative and unique and different from stage to stage. So you might have to hack this computer, and then you might have to go over here and take out this unit array, and then you might have to there's certain objectives that you're having to do in the stage. In this one, even obtain the package, you're not really doing that. You're just getting to the room, and then the cutscene's going to play where you're obtaining the package. So
I would have liked to see one that's like find these 3 data chips, and you have to like actually find something.
And you have the world built out because you have a massive environment.
Just hide them.
Some other awkward stuff too, where like there's a door you need to get through, and you just checked it and it's locked.
Right.
But then like it doesn't unlock until you kill all the enemies, but it never told you that, and so you go check everything else, and then you're like, oh, when did this door open? There were definitely a couple of clunky sort of gameplay flow elements, or areas where it would forward track you and then backtrack you. And some areas there that just were like felt like they just needed refinement.
Well, and they knew that it was going to be a problem because about 30 seconds of wandering around, they give you an arrow up top that is pointing you in the right direction
towards the next thing.
Like, I would have liked that permanently on, to be honest, with the scale of this game. If it were smaller, I would turn it off. But the fact that it is so wide and open.
I think better design would mean that you wouldn't have to necessarily rely on a navigational arrow, but one or the other. But you've just, it's just kind of like hodgepodge and like barfed out, and you're just kind of existing.
Yeah, and the world could have been so good. You think of like games that do level design well. You think of like a Half-Life or something that's just like classically inspired and good level design, and it's part of the storytelling. It like moves you through those things, and I think they tried to give you some of those beats where you got okay, now we're suddenly facing a helicopter, or okay, now you got to pick up this sniper rifle and actually do some sniping where you haven't had to do that before, to try and give it some of that sort
The
of
car
depth.
chase, like
Yeah, exactly. They try to like mix it up and give it some depth here, but they didn't do that very well with the actual like level design
Yeah.
itself, and that just becomes really almost distractingly apparent at times. I also felt it was a little bit, and again, we just talked about how they do intentionally break it up, and they do intentionally break it up a couple of ways. But I did feel like that the gameplay loop was also a little bit repetitive. I had fun because the mechanic is so fun, and I don't mind doing it again and again because it's really cool. But I wish there had been a little more variety of enemy types.
Same.
Or a strategy about certain ways to deal with certain enemies. It's a lot of
brute
fight
force.
the SWAT team
Yeah.
over and over again by being awesome and Matrix. And again, I don't think that's necessarily bad. That's most of what you want. They do break it up with some specific things, but your bread and butter is run around and be cool and be awesome. But just do that a lot.
Can we talk about the enemies just real briefly? Why are the security guards calling for security? Security!
Well, they're all fake
Brother,
anyways,
you are.
right? I don't know really how the Matrix
Yeah, they're
works, but,
projections. Yeah.
I did love that some of them don't want to fight you and get scared, and
Yeah.
so they'll put their hands
Yeah.
up or they'll kneel down. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
and I'll
it's
still
fine.
shoot them.
The AI wasn't actually terrible for this time. I felt like some of the enemies would like hide behind stuff. Some of them would stay as a group and try and shoot you. It wasn't like it was great.
It wasn't phoned in.
But
yeah.
NPCs actually kind of acted like NPCs. Your enemies seemed like they were doing things that were sort of intelligent. It wasn't the worst on that front. There's just like only 2 or 3 enemy types, and it needed more variety.
I agree with that complaint. I will say that I did enjoy that when they brought the agents in, that's what they're called, Nolan, that you don't fight them, you run. And
You run.
that's good. And like,
Kinda.
because you can take out all the cops you want,
Right.
But when the agents show up, you
Neo
get out
fights
of there.
them, not you.
And that's why
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why they did exactly. That's why you're not Neo, he's not in this. And if he had been in this, it would have needed to be a completely different style game. There's actually a lot of reasons that I'm glad they didn't make it about him.
Aged.
You remember Pogs?
Absolutely. No, yeah, of course he doesn't.
Right. Yeah,
Slammers?
for sure.
Did you have any
Yeah.
slammers? Holographic
Of course.
slammers?
So many. And Nolan's obvious answer is no, because flash in the pan, fad. The Matrix wasn't that
Okay.
bad, but it was that steep. It was a very popular thing for a little while. I guess they did go back and make the 4th movie, and people still liked it.
Many
But like,
years
it was a
later.
huge cultural phenomenon
Yep.
at the time, and I don't think people today would be as excited to go play a Matrix game.
Omega disagree.
Wow, I didn't even know you could disagree that hard.
I got a bigger one.
But
haven't
Nolan,
seen-
you
haven't
do-
even
you-
seen Giga disagree.
Nolan, you do agree though, because we've had the conversations before that any video game tied to another media has struggle with when it comes
Yeah,
to
but
the
that's
age
a
department.
boring argument. We've said that before, but like, and yeah, it's true. But this, if there would be an exception, it would be this, because the Matrix is, was calling it a flash with pan's insane. First of all, but
Huge cultural touchstone. In some ways, timeless, unforgettable, but it was just big hype at the moment.
No,
and like that
see-
hype is gone.
Don't
yes,
pat
it was hype, but it integrated itself into pop culture in a deeper way than you're saying. People saying oh, I'm in the Matrix, or like the Matrix being a concept is common colloquial vernacular that people will say, and it's referenced all the time.
Take the red pill or the blue pill.
The red
like,
pill and the
yeah.
blue pill is literally still used in dumb ways now, but it's still said and mentioned. It had very deep impact on pop culture. And so I think if any game based on movie, flash in the pan, quote unquote, game that would go above that is it would be this.
It would be a Matrix game, but I don't think it would be the Enter the Matrix game, and I'll tell you why. Because it is so heavily tethered, not even to the first movie, but to the second movie. And it is so, I do think name alone that they'll make the sale, and they did. They sold like crazy when it first came out. Now all of them went back to the store, and we'll get to that. But I think the name alone, and the you've on the front of the cover, right? You've got there's probably
The numbers
a name for it,
falling,
but you've
yeah,
got
the rain.
numbers, right?
Yes.
The number rain. So it is going to cause people, gamers at the
Iconic,
time.
man.
To buy it, to whatever. So I do agree with that. But then when they start playing and realizing, one, that it's tethered not to the first movie but to the second, two, that it's not Neo but some character that probably they've never heard of or don't remember from the movie, and 3 and 4 and 5, like there's other reasons of why I think it ages, because, and it even aged maybe in the moment because people that only knew Matrix because it was the hive mind of the time aren't going to know what is going on in this game and is going to want to play. I'm going back to my first argument, going to want to play Neo. Someone that doesn't know and love the Matrix is going to want to come in and play Neo.
Yes.
And to not be able to play as one of these other characters, I do think it adds a lot to what's going on in the world. But for just normies, I think, especially in 2023,
My counter to that,
2025 too.
My counter to that is, like, whatever, Jada Pinkett Smith, lol. The characters are cool. Ghost is cool. Like, you're still being awesome. It is canon, which makes this game infinitely more interesting to me than just being like, this is a Matrix game. We use the title and we use some of the tropes. Enjoy. No, this is actually like story that the Wachowskis contributed to. That, I think, helps it so much. And the fact that it doesn't have to be Neo. Tied to the second movie is maybe a little strange, but I don't think so strange that it's going to steer people away from experiencing this game, because yes, we've talked about it being story driven and having story elements that matter, but I do not think that's the main point of this game.
It's just the main point is to do cool acrobatic
100%.
stunts.
Yep.
100%, yes.
Run
It
up a
is
wall and
about the
kick
gameplay.
somebody, jump forward and spin and dodge bullets while shooting.
A million times.
That is what
That's
this
what it's,
game
yes.
is about.
Really, because I thought the main point of the game was choosing whether or not I was going to save every 5 seconds.
You
Because
don't appreciate that?
my goodness, Kenny, did you have that on PC? Because almost every door you go through, it's going halfway through cutscenes. It's asking you if you want to save or not. It was absurd, and it takes so long, even if you choose no.
I don't think it was quite that bad, but it's still fairly frequent.
Did you
Major
have-
breaks
they-
between things.
Like, Kenny, did you have quick saves and auto saves? Because we didn't. We don't have
Yeah.
quick saves or auto saves. It was not auto saving.
Don't know. I don't think so. I definitely didn't use it. I just depended on the default saves between stages because that automatically happened. I don't remember pulling up a window and seeing a save option, but I know you could like load into games and I could save into different files. So it was probably slightly better, but it still was
I
a
think
little
it's
janky.
a lazy man's save system, Dustin. I think they did that so that they wouldn't have to think deeper about like save points and parts in the story where it would make sense to save. So they just ask you literally constantly, and there's no like auto save feature. Like that would eventually, I think, in the future, just become an auto save.
Yes.
But
Right.
they yeah.
Whoever says no.
Right. No, that's
You
what
know
I was
what I
thinking.
mean?
I was like, well, I just made some progress. I might as well save.
Well, and,
So-
and if you didn't want to for whatever reason, go back to your hard save. So like in between
Yeah.
stages, you need that, or even one hard place on every map, a phone, a telephone, right? A hardwired
Yes,
telephone,
yes.
a landline. That would make sense.
Save point.
And then
Very, very
have
good.
auto saves throughout the stage. There's no auto saves. It's asking you seriously. There were times, I think in my first play alone,
Yes.
probably 6 times that it asked me to auto if I wanted to save. That's not good.
Okay. It's 2025.
It is.
You're a member of Gen Z. Hypothetically, I'm not changing how old you are magically. You boot up this game because you liked the Matrix movies. Maybe you saw your parents watch them and you were like, okay, let's see what this is about.
I start
And you
running
heard
on the
there's
wall.
some really cool features that you want to unlock, including 2-player multiplayer on PC, I think, maybe on everything, but a couple of game modes you want to unlock and a really cool cheat code that you want to unlock as well. Do you think that you're going to successfully get through the DOS-based
hacking system
menu to successfully implement your cheat codes without some kind of major hand-holding?
No, but please say this in a negative way so I can correct you.
No, I'm not. I'm just pointing out the fact that that is a very generationally specific sort of assumption of knowledge as a way to put this out there.
I think
but
it was
applies to the movie.
Yeah,
and
big
as
time.
peak millennial, it spoke to my heart.
But
I
see, you're in the
loved
minority of that. I think all those Gen Z parents would also be like, "What is this?" I think it's intentionally very. I think that's very intentional.
Very like you have to be a hacker to like go
Sure.
in and navigate the file system and like get to these cheat
Yes,
codes.
dude,
It
that fits.
feels very Matrix. I like that they took that extra bit of icing. I'm definitely not saying this as a complaint, but I am saying it doesn't future-proof super well.
Sure.
As we talk about how the game aged.
If I was Gen Z, I would ask, why is this game so green? Why did they put a green film over the entire thing? And then my mommy would tell me that's what the movies were like. There's a green film over everything.
Because they're in a computer simulation. Dude, yeah.
It is, it's very green. There's not many rich colors in this game at all. If it's not green, it's gray. And I would say, like, I've got a split opinion when it comes to graphics. I think the character models look okay. I mean, they're sharp at times and whatever, but you know what you're working with. Everything else, I thought, back to the stage design, I just thought was fairly bland. Animations sometimes are laughable. Niobe's run is absurd.
The run animation's wild.
Did y'all see her or Ghost? I don't know. I would assume they both do it, which, by the way, we didn't even talk much about. Niobe's game experience, although they fight the same way, their story is somewhat different. They do some different things.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in the car chase scene, as Niobe, you are driving the car. As Ghost, you are shooting out the side window. So there are some differences there. But
that's fun. A little bit of replayability.
Yeah. It gives you would want to play because they are different enough. But the character model's fine. I think almost everything else though is empty and bland and not very detailed.
It is empty. It is bland. It is green.
But
no buts. I wish that it would have been less.
Yeah, put a plant in your airport.
I mean, just wait,
or a picture on a wall ever. Like I'm just saying, like
it did not feel real.
Yeah,
flesh out the environment.
Yeah.
Honestly,
the whole point is we're not trying to point out that this is fake. Like this is supposed to look like the real world.
That was my question. It had been so long that I was honestly asking throughout the week a few times when I was looking at some of these things. Is like is it supposed to be a break in reality? Like, is it supposed to be like? I was really thinking like, is this intentional? I didn't remember if the world is blander because it's not real, but it's not. It's supposed
it's
to
absolutely
be.
not.
In the movies, the world is like, if you don't know the twist, I mean, they tell you early in the beginning
world
that
is normal.
The world is not real, but it wouldn't be very obvious to you
unless you're
necessarily
Neo
unless you like
and see it all as numbers.
Yeah, but like, no, I think that was just we don't feel like doing this kind of thing to put the details on the walls, and they're just
the movie's dropping. You're out of time. Ship it.
Kind of
is what it felt
kind
like.
of.
It's what it felt like to me. It needed some more love just to like finish the process of making these places feel complete.
But I will say the green film on it is
that's a movie.
Needs to be there. It's cool. It's easy on them, honestly, just to not have to worry about, I don't know, color grading or worrying about different contrast. You just put the film on it and call it a day, but it fits. I like that part.
And you're saying the green film fits because not only in lore, but that's what they did in the movies as well.
Sure.
The soundtrack, Nolan, I would imagine it's very comparable, maybe even some of the same tracks from the movie.
Not just
it's
soundtrack, but some really important sound effects as well. The phone rings are like, I know that's silly, but they're good. Like authentic. They sound like the real movie. It's got the, you could tell they tried hard on that front. just the visuals where I feel like it falls short.
I
Sound is right on.
I will say there are so many games that we played that are iterations of like a movie or a show that is not faithful.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I think we're all in agreement of is like this game is doing everything that it can to be faithful to the original, like for what it's connected to.
Yes, and was not like phoned in. This was there was a lot of work done, and you mentioned the soundtrack. It's super long, and there were like big bands in it too. Like Wachowski's got Evanescence, and like
Bring
some
Me
other.
to Life?
I don't know if it was that one. It wasn't that one, but they're like in the game, like it's, and they released a CD with it. It was clearly done with intention, and you gotta appreciate that about it.
I think the music ages, but it is perfect for that. I mean,
It
again,
feels very Matrix.
I didn't grow
but
up
that's what
loving
it needs to be.
Matrix. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I get
listen to the soundtrack like outside of the game, but while I'm in it, I'm like, this
You're in
is
the Matrix.
perfect. This is the real experience.
I see the numbers.
Bring it on.
This is shocking to me. There were only two other. The Wachowskis must have really held tightly onto these things.
telling
There
you
were
they
only
did.
two other Matrix games, and they're not like only one of them was like console. The Path of Neo, which I've heard is actually like you're playing as Neo, so you're doing the one thing that people wanted to do, and I think it's a better representation of the Matrix. What I've heard, and then there was an MMORPG called The Matrix Online. It's obviously
Such a
shut
good
down
idea.
since then.
You just
they
unlocked
would
something.
know.
I never played it, but I
They-
know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They would have cared enough to be like, oh, this is going to be a whole
great idea.
MMO.
What if it would have been successful?
No, it's an awful idea, and
No,
they
it's a good
overstretched
idea.
and thought way too much of themselves. But
Nah, you're crazy.
I get it. Like, they were shooting for the stars. They were doing it all.
Then to think only one other game, then they could have made so much more money just
That's
like
ours,
putting out
not
crap.
y'all's.
So I respect
I love that. Yes, I love that. There's
respect
not
that.
10 Matrix games. I like that there's only 2. Really, I think that's perfect.
Like there might be that many home improvement games, you know, like
There might be more home improvement.
it's crazy. If you do want a copy of Enter the Matrix, it is going to vary depending on which of the consoles you're playing, but they're all kind of in the same ballpark, honestly. There was a lot made, a lot sold, and a lot returned to the stores. And so it's going to be around $8 used or loose, and it's going to be around $40 new.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Nolan, you often get to go first. You're a fanboy of a lot more things than I think Kenny and I are fanboys of.
It's probably true.
Which is great. I love that you love The Matrix. I love that you love Keanu. Did you love Enter the Matrix?
Yeah.
Ah!
did.
But it could have done anything.
Don't get me wrong. I went into this fully prepared to hate it, be sad that it exists, and complain about making games about blockbuster movies. And it was kind of immediately dispelled when I was told by the game that I can go in bullet time and do stupid stuff, like just constantly and spam it. That feedback to me is not in a lot of modern games. So the fact that this game is completely centered around the feeling of that and being in the Matrix and going and dodging bullets and stuff like that was such the right choice. Like, yeah, their story, yeah, it's apparently canon, which is awesome. But all that aside, and all those complaints Dustin had, I agree with. The handling's whack. The environments are wrong. It's an odd choice, but all of that's I'm excusing it all for the gameplay, for the combat in this game. It's legitimately a fun gameplay loop to me, and I want to hate this game. I want it to not exist, but it's totally sick, and I give it New Game Plus easily. Now, I just want a little caveat here. It's hard to play if you don't own the disc. I had a lot of emulation issues. I tried it on every single release. I think it's a me thing. on my computer. But that's something you might run into. I don't know. It's just maybe not the easiest to emulate, but it is a great game.
No, this game was far from optimized by the developers themselves. So
Far from
if
it.
your computer doesn't just work perfectly, because even on the consoles, like there are
bugs.
graphical issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes the tracks just stop playing. Like if you enter a door, there are some
Not
issues.
optimized. Okay.
I don't think this was included in the console, so you guys may not have seen it, but as you're running around the world, there's posters, like decorations in the game that are like, improve your experience by playing on Pentium 4.
Really?
No, definitely not on ours.
Yeah, like everywhere. So there was like this subtle
That could have been
advertising
an
on, like,
announcement on the
yeah,
internet.
like how to do it right. And probably today you're still going to have the most luck playing this game if you're running a Pentium 4.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I not as strongly. I have much more reservations about this game. But cart before the horse, I'm generally agreeing with Nolan's take here. This is a fairly imperfect game, and I'm not easy on my outcome here. I'm actually super torn about the outcome here. It's janky at times, but relatively easy to pick up and understand. Has really fun gameplay loop, but is a little bit repetitive. Is... again, harder to emulate or pick up and play, but also was plentiful. And so, like, if you want to go out and just pick up a copy cheap and play it on real hardware, you can. So it's, like, accessible even though it's not accessible. It's a cultural touchstone, but it's aged a little bit. So, like, I'm just very torn. There are really great things about this game and some pretty terrible things about this game as well. So
part of using the Matrix, part of using the real world.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I kind of went back and forth a lot this week. But ultimately, I want to stay in the Matrix and shoot crazy guns and run up walls and kick people. It was really fun.
Dustin
I don't
rant
think
incoming.
it will work for a lot of people. I think this is a recommendation that I'm going to agree with Nolan and give my own fun outweighed annoyance as my outcome and say, sure, NGP from me, but buyer beware, know what you're getting into. If that gameplay loop doesn't sound fun, you're not going to get anything out of this. But if running around and just doing crazy matrixy things and doing a lot of that sounds entertaining to you, you're going to be entertained. They put a lot of love into this game. A lot of it doesn't translate at all, but I had enough fun that even though it's based on the second Matrix movie, I'm going to give it New Game Plus.
Wow. I did
Shocking
not
to
expect
me.
that. All right,
Not
Dustin.
shocking for Nolan necessarily. Although, here's the thing. It's kind of shocking just for both of y'all. I mean, Kenny doesn't surprise me much anymore in life in general, but Nolan, I knew that you loved The Matrix, but I didn't know that that was going to be over to be able to overshadow how lackluster this game is. So, it doesn't matter because the game has received its vote already, but I think Enter the Matrix is neither as bad or as good as you could predict or hope, depending on which aisle you find yourself in.
That's probably fair.
It's good enough to hold your attention, but it's clearly a rushed and unfinished project that has a lot of promise, but not enough payoff. There are fun moments, but I disagree with Nolan in that the loop isn't satisfying. They're like, good idea, poor implementation. I said it already, but rushed. If they would have taken more time to work on this, there are some good puzzle pieces there, but the way that the puzzle was constructed, it was not enjoyable for me. So at the end of the day, I think hardcore Matrix fans should play it, if for nothing else, what it adds to the universe, because it's canon. That's fun. But everyone else should skip it. But it doesn't matter, because according to these two guys, Enter the
agree with
Matrix is New Game Plus
So
certified.
fun. It's so fun.
No, me too. It's a mess of a game. I just had enough fun
just
with
love
the
it.
main thing you do that I won me over. Despite that, it is flawed and imperfect, and yet it gets New Game Plus.
But what did you think on our YouTube poll? 32% said yes, it's worth playing today.
Okay, higher than I expected.
Still
Same.
not high. 24% no, go play something else, and 44% have never played. I guess it is higher than you would think.
I thought it'd be way lower, actually.
That's more people having played it
Sure.
than
Right,
I would
exactly.
have expected.
That's what's shocking
Yeah,
me.
me too.
Many from our community played along and wrote in. HSpice007 said, I had to ask myself, do I believe? Well, when the opening animations, including the title screen, emulated so badly I couldn't tell what I was looking at, I began losing faith rapidly. When I finally got into the game and it was playable enough until big action sequences began so that the lag made it all but unplayable, I lost the rest of it. I'm sure the ROM selection might have had something to do with it, and it had taken several different tries to get anything to work, but ultimately the things I thought were cool, like running on walls, stealth, gun fun, and beat 'em ups, are better done in games like Prince of Persia, Tomb Raider, 007, and Spider-Man. I do not believe in this game, at least.
Oh, come on. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I was pretty convinced that it was red and green pill for a little bit of my first
Oh,
play,
no.
but,
So wrong. What?
He
Shane,
definitely green pilled himself.
Shane said this game was fine, I suppose. Slowing down time to
Yeah.
take long jumps and beating up enemies does come with a base level of fun to it. But the health
It
system
does.
here annoys me. It feels like the design doesn't really want me to use guns because the melee stuff is cooler, but forces me to because enemies hurt. I'm sure if I were a Matrix kid, I'd have loved to get this in the mid-2000s, but today it's not really worth a play. No NGP from me, just go watch the movie.
And see, I didn't play it back when I was the Matrix kid and did later, and I still think it's worth it.
But see, the thing you can't say is just go watch the movie because this is a different thing.
It
No,
is.
to-
It's
yeah.
a different thing.
Watch movie
and
and
if
play
you
game.
want more, like you need to do this if you want the full story, which is an interesting caveat. But I don't disagree with his sentiment. It still won me over.
Nolan, why haven't you watched the Animatrix, the animated Matrix shorts or shows that
I
are
don't
part
know.
of the canon? They
don't
look amazing. They are, I think, different entries are different producers, so like they're different art styles, but they're telling Matrix stories. It's canon.
The
And
Animatrix.
they look
Is
sick,
canon?
dude. Yes, is canon.
Yeah,
it's
produced
another
by the
part of
Wachowskis.
the universe.
I need to get around to it. It looks sick.
It looks sick.
Oh.
Hey Brother 45 said this game got super hyped back in the day because of the buzz surrounding the Matrix Reloaded movie. You got to do cool bullet time scenes written by the directors of the actual movie. That sounds cool, right?
Yes.
In the end, we got a generic, repetitive third-person shooter that would
Yep.
be completely forgotten if it weren't tied so closely to the movie. The bullet time features just seem like a watered-down version of the bullet time in Max Payne, and the game itself just feels unfinished and rushed to get it out in time for the movie. No NGP from me.
Yeah, oh, that's true.
I'm in Nolan's camp.
I don't
too.
care,
Oh, that's
though.
true,
Like-
and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like this is a
Who
this is
cares?
a mid game
I
that
understand.
hooked me with the fun main mechanic. I'm totally in that same camp.
Hey, here's one that agrees with you. You got
All
one
right.
this week.
Cool.
Sam's Club Hot Dog said, contrary to everyone so far, I like this game, but it's purely nostalgia talking. As a kid, this was one of the only PS2 games I had for quite some time. I used to play it all the time, and before this week, hadn't played it in probably 10 years or so. I think it's fun. It's nothing crazy, but it's fun to me. That's all it's ever been, honestly. There are most definitely complaints to be had, but for me personally, I just can't think of any off the top of my head. This game gets an NGP from me.
Wait.
Nostalgia game plus.
That is the definition of ignorance is bliss. Imagine
Yeah.
having a PS2 and this is the only
Yeah.
game you have when Final Fantasy X exists.
Sure, but listen, if this is the only game you had, you could have done worse. Like I bet you would love it,
Yeah,
right? Like
of course. You could
Now,
have done way
also,
worse.
we didn't even say it's a short game. I think even without knowing, this is a 5-6 hour game. Now
Yep.
you can play the two different
2
characters,
playthroughs, yeah.
doubles that, but
Yeah.
it's no Final Fantasy X. I mean,
Yeah, right. There were other options.
I cannot believe this is New Game Plus certified, but it is. But it is time to set aside Enter the Matrix and randomly select the next game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days. Hopefully, it's not as broken as this one
I hope
was.
not.
Randomizing now. The game released in 1997 for the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and the PC.
Okay,
Okay.
that's odd.
It is.
not?
Is this a good sign? It has
Could be, yeah.
since been ported to the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5,
Good
Xbox
sign.
One.
Good sign.
I mean,
New
that's a
stuff.
very good sign.
It is. It is. It means there's something there. It's an example of one of the earlier 3D platforming video games.
I love early 3D platforming
Okay.
generally.
It's from a developer that you do not know,
Okay.
Agronaut Software.
Never heard of them.
And it is a game that I owned, I think, or at least rented. I have fond memories of growing up and some nostalgic attachment to
Okay.
that I do not want
Okay.
crushed this week.
Oh no.
Oh no. You gotta trust
It'll
us.
hold
I mean,
up.
it's
You're-
early three. I gotta trust me.
Trust.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
back to it, and it's all just nostalgia, you know, like.
Right. Yeah, that happens.
But there's some fondness here. You are going to be playing as a young crocodile set out to rescue his adoptive family from the evil magician Baron Dante in
What?
Croc: Legend of the Gobos.
Wild. That's wild. Everything you just said is crazy.
I mean, it's all those 3D platformers of the time that had a mascot. This was another
It's
attempt
just
at
one
that.
of the mascots.
It-
yeah.
Why have I
it's-
never ever once heard of this?
If you see the cover, you might
I
recognize
might,
it.
yeah.
If not, it might just be a me thing. I don't know why
What's
we
it
had
called?
it, but Croc, CROC. It's where the shoes came from. Legend of the Gobos. I believe it became it spawned a series.
I've definitely seen this cover.
Okay.
I'm super hyped to play it.
Yeah.
I've never dabbled in this, but it looks fun.
It's been a minute since a 3D platformer on the show.
Yeah, I love me a mascotted 3D platformer
Yeah.
in 1997. Yes, I'm
Except
there.
y'all been mean to a few of them. I'm looking at you, Spyro.
Is it going to be
having
messed
weird-
up if we give this
having
New
a-
Game Plus and not Spyro?
I'm having weird PTSD from Ninja Bread Man. So
Ooh, that
we'll
was
see.
the
That was the last one.
I'm not ready for a
Yeah.
3D platformer now.
Find a copy of Croc: Legend of the Gobos and play it along with us this week.
Join us in Discord. We have a thriving Discord server that we would like you to be a part of. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
We also want to say thank you to those of you who support the retro gaming podcast that we bring to your ears each week by going to patreon.com and lending us your support. Thank you to our newest patrons, Peter, Anthony, and Sergeant Wolf 114.
Welcome.
Appreciate you guys joining. Of course, humongous thank you to our director level supporters. Bro Jim, Dustin's 5 o'clock Shadow, Super Hyper, Siegfried, Mystic, and Tins. You guys can run up a wall and kick us in the face anytime you want. And to our many producer level supporters as well, you are invited into the Matrix with us, including Alex and Marlene, Antonin, Ben, Cody, Craig, Dagany, Dan Willett, Garlisle, Guardian Kate, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Jordan, George Binks, Justin, Clint, Levi, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Rad Mac, Retroman, Sajan, Sasser, Scotty Shane, Shauna, Snakematic, Swaggy, Taco Fish, Psycho Mantis, Thomas, Tins, Turtle, Unbedavable, and Zion. We appreciate y'all.
You can find us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by our friend Dave. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Croc: Legend of the Gobos. Until then, I'm still Morpheus.
After a while.
Nolan.
And this has been New Game Plus.